right, looks like we're ready to go.
All right. Welcome everyone to the regular trustee meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 16th, 2021. Ms. Kraft, if you could please call roll.
Sure. Mr. Grumbles?
Here.
Ms. Taranto?
Here.
Mr. Rivers?
Here.
Okay, we're going to move recess into the zoning hearing for zoning application ZON 20-03 for Slate Ridge single family, the amendment. So Ms. Bonnie, if you would like to take over and open the application.
I will go ahead and start reading off the legal notice. Notice is hereby given that the Orange Township Board of Trustees will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, February 16th, 2021 at 6 p.m. to consider the following application. Rezoning application number zone-20-03 of Kerbler Farms LLC / Kerbler Builders, requesting an amendment of the currently effective development plan for 105.76 plus or minus acres within the Slate Ridge Single Family Plan Residential District, approved under application number 13-0505. The property is owned by Kerbler Farms LLC / Kerbler Builders and located on the northeast corner of US 23 and Columbus Pike and Home Road, and the parcel numbers are indicated on the screen. And this was published on time or before February 5th. And if I can continue on, Trustee Grumbles.
Sure.
I did provide a staff report for the board. We did review it. The zoning committee, I can move forward. This is on the home property off of Home Road. It's a fairly large site. Like I mentioned, it's 105 acres. Surrounding it has a variety of uses. To the north is the Lewis Center Ravines and some commercial outlots facing 23. South is just south of that is the Orange Grand apartments that were recently approved, and then undeveloped commercial. East, of course, is the railroad tracks, and the west is the Clear Creek development, which is a mix of single family and commercial uses. So this is an amendment as described in my staff report. This was approved back in 2014 for the Slate Ridge Single Family District, and they are coming to us today primarily due to the market conditions, and they want to get their, the most out of this property as possible. And I'll let the applicant discuss further on that. But for the staff report, I'm sorry, my screen keeps switching. For the staff report, I kind of designed it as what was originally proposed, originally approved to what they're proposing, and it shows the differences. So the density is always the biggest thing. It has changed since the 2014 plan, but it does comply or very close to our required 2 dwelling units per acre. Open space, this remains similar. It's actually a little more open space because the proposed development has smaller lots, so would provide more open space. And again, there's a few other things. The setbacks have changed. This is a similar product to like our EPCON communities. So the single family detached condos with the patio home product. And again, I'll let the applicant speak more on that. But overall, the Zoning Commission did recommend conditional approval unanimously at their meeting held on January 26, 2021. And there were 6 stipulations as outlined in the staff report. After reviewing the most recent submittal, the applicant did address all these stipulations. So this is ready for the trustees' consideration this evening. And I do know there's quite a few on the applicant's side, and I don't know if either one of them want to give a brief presentation.
This is Andrew Weckert, Management Martin and Program, and we have available for the trustees tonight. Jim Kerbler is here on behalf of the owner, Kerbler Farms LLC. And then we also have the land planner, Todd Ferris from Ferris Planning and Design, and from Advanced Civil Design, engineer Jeffrey Guggenbiller. And as it came down to it, when it passed the commission with the stipulations, the one thing we didn't know for sure that night that we had to look into was stipulation number 4 on the rear yard setback. And as it worked out, we were able to accommodate that. And that's what you have before you. The other stipulations I viewed mainly as a matter of conforming the drawings in the submittal to the text as it was submitted. And if there's more particular questions that the trustees would have, we'd be glad to address those for you.
Andy, if I can add, we talked to the fire department before this, and I did get the okay for this most current plan. So they will be asking for final plans, of course, but the fire department is acceptable to these plans.
Good, thank you, Michelle. I know Jeff Kugenbiller had been following up with Lieutenant Clark on that, and I appreciate your reminder on that. We had met with them early in this process. Just because with the Chakroff property in the middle, it's not quite fully developed yet, but Mr. Chakroff is another landowner and he has his own prerogatives, which he's entitled to. But at this point, the fire department has been comfortable with this.
And just for the board's concern, that Mr. Chakroff, he owns this property here. You can see my highlighted. And so there has been conversations with them. And I did have a discussion with him earlier last week, and he seemed satisfied with the proposal tonight.
And one thing we'd like to get with you, Michelle, once we know more ourselves, is our impression had been that Mr. Chakroff had been concerned with the county's plans with regard to the Green Meadows extension. And we didn't know any more about the county's plans than he did, but we thought he was raising a good question. And so Jeff Guggenbiller has scheduled a separate meeting with the county, and we'll let you know that that's going to be later on this month. And we'll let you know what we learned of that. And because obviously that's, what the county intends to do there will affect both properties. And that's one of the stipulations, I think, in one of the earlier redrafts that we had, is we added language in section 10.03 to the extent Green Meadows Drive is extended north to promote connectivity, traffic circulation, and access, the landowner will reasonably cooperate with its adjacent parcels as requested by county and/or township officials.
That's correct. And that was a staff comment early on in this process.
Right.
Do you have any idea as far as timeline? I know you said you have a meeting with the Green Meadows extension, what all parties are involved in that whole process going forward?
Jim Kerbler could speak better to that, Trustee Rivers. And Jim, do you have your microphone off mute?
I think I do. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. We are going to meet with the county on, I think I tried to set it up with Jeff on the 24th. So I really won't know much more than until after the 24th of this month.
And this is Skip Weiler. The road, the Green Meadows Road has not changed. So on the original plan that was approved years ago, it shows it. So that part we haven't changed. We're just at to a point now where it's time to nail it down with the county and figure out what is the timing and the structure and all those things. So we don't know the timing. I don't think it's going to come right away, but really the county's the one who's driving that. So we'll find out more based upon what the county wants.
Yeah, I think that will provide some much needed connectivity and relief once we have that extension completed.
And I know the county's planning on it. And obviously they've taken it into account north of us. So we know it's going to happen. And really the county's the one who's driving it. So it will be ultimately, I think, their call how soon or how slow that happens.
Sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the Green Meadows extension, do you have a map on this presentation, Michelle, that shows a higher vantage point, I guess you could say, that includes more of the township other than just that small? I'm looking specifically for the Green Meadows connection because we've gotten quite a few resident emails about that or texts. I've gotten some comments on Facebook as well, inquiring about the tie-in to the, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Lewis Center roundabout, Lewis Center Road. Is that correct? I believe that's where it's slated to connect in.
That's the intent, yes.
Okay, so that would be the county, pending the county then, so we could potentially ask our liaison with the county to see if the engineer's office to see if we can get an ETA. And Mr. King, I would ask that we go ahead and do that with Doug Riedel or whomever to try and get a projected date for connectivity or phases if they're going to take a phased approach. And if we find that out, let's post it on our Facebook page to keep the community informed. And then I agree with Trustee Rivers as part of the release and information on this, making sure it's packaged. Other than that, I don't really have any questions. I think, Michelle, we spoke about this, and really the big change was just the units per acre for the most part. I mean, that was the big overwhelming, I guess. And just for reference, the design shows a planned elderly district, but that's one that we also changed, correct, to a standard multifamily residential right there.
Yep.
That's the one we just recently changed.
Yes,
So,
that's
okay.
correct.
I just like to keep everybody informed because I do know we have some residents that do attend the meetings and pay attention to this. So
Sure.
that's no longer a designated elderly district. Then we'll change this. And as noted, the blank, I guess you would call it southern land, the bunch of acreage that extends south into the development, dissects the development. We aren't sure what that will be, if anything, at this point in time. But the landowner did not object to the plans and the changes made, correct?
This property here.
That section there.
Yep, that's correct.
Right.
Yep, we had communication with them, and like Mr. Wecker said, we would like to know the plans for Green Meadows, but I think the language that was outlined in the development text here tonight will satisfy that communication moving forward.
Okay, great. I have no other questions then, and I appreciate everybody's partnership on this with the fire department and with zoning, with our staff, and the responsiveness to the commission. Much appreciated. And we're excited to partner with you all in the Slate Ridge area. And it's a big development, and I know a lot went into that before my time. But it's indicative of the type of partnership and collaboration that we're really looking to establish in Orange and in our township with you as partners, but long-term partners, and looking at the best interests of the township. I know we have planned an overpass and a bunch of things that go hand in hand with this larger scale development project. So thank you for working with our group and the consideration of the community in this. again, it represents what we're looking to do here long-term, and appreciate your time tonight.
Hey, Mr. Kerbler, you still intend on building the nursing care facility and the senior residential down the road, correct?
We're not sure. Our agreement with the other nursing care, we have a certain time period that we cannot build another one. And I think that is about a 5-year period.
Okay.
So, yeah, we have a little bit of time to see if there's any interest in that. But right now, we cannot even look into that venture because of a restriction on our sale to H&D.
H&D could develop that. They could waive that restriction if they're the ultimate, if they build a second facility.
I know that there's a waiting list pretty much at the other facilities in the area, so I feel like there is definitely a
There's
demand.
demand. H&D is, can you share that just the name of the company is H&D, or?
That's on the south side of this map. It's next to the Mount Carmel facility on Emo's Way, just out on the south side of Emo's Way there.
I see the indication of the future full nursing care. I guess what I was asking, you said, you mentioned that it was sold to another entity, was it H&D?
Yeah, H&D purchased purchased the site for their facility there. And when they purchased that site over by Mount Carmel's Hospital there, they put a restriction on this site because they didn't want competition. And so they wanted a 5-year head start, which they said if they may want to do a second one. And if so, they can get rid of that restriction themselves. If they don't do a second one, then once the 5 years run out, which I think, Jim, you can correct me, I think we have 4 years left or so.
Just about 4 years.
Yeah. So then at the end of 4 years, we could sell it to another assisted living facility, and which we would definitely like to do. But in order to get them to move forward on their site, we had to put that restriction on ours.
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay, so that it's more of a retainer, or I guess a non-compete than an ownership. I just wanted to clarify that. I didn't.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly
Thank you.
right.
I have no further questions.
All right. Trustee Rivers, I know you already asked some questions. Michelle, any last thoughts here, or are you comfortable moving to the resolution?
I'm comfortable. I mean, we were happy to see a unanimous vote at the zoning commission level. There was some discussion involving the setbacks along the perimeters. The zoning commission asked for larger setbacks, particularly on the northern side, and the applicant complied with that. And I have no stipulations with the the resolution this evening. So that's a rare opportunity, and I think this is we're pretty happy with the outcome.
Yeah, and I think that was the basis for my comments prior to Trustee Taranto inquiring, and I apologize, Trustee Taranto, for mentioning that before I inquired if you were satisfied or not. So excuse me for moving ahead there, but thank you, Ms. Bonnie, and again, thank you to the developer for being responsive and in your partnership. So without any other let me try and get my screen orientated here, and I'll read the resolution. Do we need to, I guess, exit the hearing then and return to regular session first?
No, you would read the resolution, or we would take action on the resolution, and then we would go back to the regular session.
Okay. All right. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-054, adopting the recommendation of the approval of the zoning commission as the zoning application ZON 20-03 of Kerbler Farms LLC, Kerbler Builders.
Second?
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Michelle, does that conclude our recess for zoning?
It does, yes. And Trustee Grumbles, if I may, for those that were only on here for this application, if you'd like to tune into the meeting, we ask you to tune in on our via YouTube channel at this time. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Now return to our regular session, which starts with our consent agenda. Before we get there, I would ask if there's any changes or requests on the consent, objections to the consent agenda.
I don't have any.
I don't have any.
Okay. Are there any,
I'm sorry. Could we review that quality signs, the then and now PO for miscoded? They were just miscoded, is that correct, Ms. Kraft?
It is, that is correct. I thought that was later in my session. Is it under there also? Because we needed a new, let me just look real quick. I thought I just, okay, it's also under resolution 21-064, the issuance of a PO for quality custom signs. But yeah, we can talk to these together. Basically, it was originally coded to and paid from parks. And so I just raised the issue with Mr. King, and he came back and requested that it get changed to roads. So that's what you see here.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
are we comfortable with the, with this Mr. King being under roads? I assume this is the branding signs, I'm assuming, correct? Because I remember it was around 76,000 was the number I communicated to the community that I was forwarded. So I'm assuming that's what this is for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is correct. I mean, I talked about it with Bill Cowan. I had Patty look at it and then send it off to the fiscal office to review. I think the fact that they're wayfinding signs, they're placed in the right of way and on the poles, it seemed like an appropriate expense. So that's why that seemed like the right place to put it. But, you know, we can certainly discuss other places, but that was sort of internally the place where we landed on that.
Is that all complete? Are the signs fixed that were incorrect replaced yet?
Well, I mean, I wanted to have sort of a larger discussion about the sign, so I don't know if we want to do all that right now, but
Yeah.
as far as
So one of the, I went out of order. I didn't ask for agenda changes. One topic that I do want to discuss tonight, and I appreciate Mr. King bringing that up, is the, I think we're looking at emails here. I'm not sure who's, Michelle, if that's you or whomever, but we have Zoom's going nuts here. One thing I did want to discuss is the signage in general, as a general topic, and as it relates to the county. So, Mr. King, if you would like, we can get the consent agenda knocked out. And one other agenda change, I want to talk about a development with a, I guess, in partnership with a community here to benefit all of Orange Township as well. So two items that aren't on here for me that manifested, one today and one yesterday. So
and
is
prosecutor.
that fair, Mr. King?
Yeah, that's fair. I just want to mention that the prosecutor is also on the call, so she may want to say something before we get too far into this. But yeah, like I said,
Sure.
The sign issue I know came up. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about Trustee Taranto's question, sort of what the plans are with DCFA. I think Trustee Rivers might have some additional information on that. And then I can talk about how the signs have dovetailed with some other issues that we've had with some shared projects with the county. So the board is aware of all those. So I think that makes perfect sense to me, and I'm happy to talk about all of it.
Okay. So let's get the consent agenda out of the way, and then we'll open the floor for a prosecutor to speak, and then we'll move on if that's okay with the rest of the board. So with no objections to the consent agenda, make a motion to approve resolution 21-055 and 21-056, the consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Schiffel, welcome to the Orange Township meeting. Thank you for stopping by to say hello to us, and I'll turn over to you. And
thank you. I just want to say Happy New Year. I hope you are all doing well. I continue to be impressed by our townships that are operating at such a high level of expertise for their constituents like you, despite the curveballs that COVID-19 has thrown us. So I congratulate you on a job well done. And as always, if you ever need anything from me, you know how to get a hold of me. And I know that Attorney Betts is here to speak with you later on about the item on your agenda. So happy 2021 and stay safe.
Thank you.
thank you. And appreciate your continued partnership there as well. And for coming by and saying hello to us. I know our residents appreciate that too. Okay. I know we have a couple of corrections here to journal entries. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-057, correction to the January 6th, 2021 journal.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-058, correction to the February 1st, 2021 journal.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
And for transparency to the residents there that aren't following the notes, the changes in journal entry were simply to update the year from 2020 to 21. Nothing more. Miss Bonnie, do you have anything else to add to tonight other than the zoning hearing?
I did have a zoning report that I provided you all. Just a couple updates. We have, let me see if I can pull that up. Actually, Val, if you can pull that up from the Google backup items, I can talk about it from there since we have a couple new hearings. Thanks. Sorry about the technical issues earlier. We were switching who was hosting the meeting. This coming Thursday, I apologize for the typo. I'm sorry, this is tonight, this evening, we had the Slate Ridge application that was approved by the Board of Trustees. Following that on Thursday, February 18th, we have two applications. One is for the Life Point Church signage, this will be the second hearing on that as that was tabled at the last one. And then the second application would be a conditional use for a monument sign for the new athletic or physical therapy center that's being constructed on Orange Road that we see going up. Following that is, let's see if we can keep going. Thank you. Following that, we did schedule two trainings, one for the Zoning Commission and one for the Board of Zoning Appeals with our board members. Since we do have our new legal counsel in place, we thought it would be a nice meet and greet. This will be held virtually, but I've invited all of my staff to attend these trainings as well. So I think this will be a good learning opportunity for Zoning Commission, which will be Tuesday, February 23rd, and Board of Zoning Appeals Thursday, March 4th. And following that, on Tuesday, March 9th at 7 p.m., we do have this rezoning application for the North Farms multifamily development. And I think the last time we discussed that, the date wasn't finalized, but that is today for Tuesday, March 9th. And then the last thing, we do have a BZA application that's pending that's involving a swimming pool over at Wilshire. The date has not been determined for that. And then as of today, which I don't know if the board saw my email or not, we do have a new application that came in, and that's for independent living over on South Old State. And I believe the date will be March 16th for that first zoning commission hearing. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Michelle, what area is that on South Old State for the independent living?
So it is just north of the Ennett Bear Trail. It's not a very big piece. I think it's about 11 acres.
Okay.
And then as far as my understanding, that would be age restricted.
Sorry, I'm having a bit of connectivity issues here. I'm jumping in and out, so I apologize for catching bits and pieces of that. Other than those updates, is there anything else before we move to operations?
Nothing under development and zoning. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Taranto, Trustee Rivers, any questions for Ms. Bonnie?
No,
No.
thank you.
All right. Operations, Mr. Cowan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I only have one item on the agenda for this evening, and that's the enter into an agreement with Olentangy Little League for use of recreational premises located at Roe Park. This is a Little League baseball team. They want to rent fields 1 and 2, our only 2 Little League fields. And I think their times, the calendars are included. Their times are through April, May, and part of June, so a relatively short time. These are little people. They're youngsters playing Little League baseball. So I hope you consider that and approve that agreement. Just real quick about the North Road Trail, if I may. At the last couple of meetings, I've been reporting that we're getting close to reaching agreements for acquisition of the easements that we need for 3 parcels. And our consultant, Dunrobin, has done that. So we have reached tentative agreements for the acquisition of 3 easements to complete that trail from Lewis Center all the way up to Shanahan. We're working on a phase or North Road Trail agreement, working with Brooks Vogel. He's has some conversation about submitting a proposal to do the engineering work. We feel that we're going to be considerably under $50,000, so we won't have to use the request for qualification procedure. But there was an email bouncing around this morning about the MOUs that Mr. Freeman, Alan Freeman needed for a grant application that hadn't been submitted. And those were the trail easements, the tentative agreements. Those were the MOUs that were needed, and they were submitted in a timely manner. So I'm glad to report that that has been taken care of. Our operations, our road crews have been out diligently, working hard. I've really haven't had any complaints. We've knocked down a couple mailboxes we're going to take a look at. But other than that, I think they've done a really, really good job. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them for you. Hearing none. Thank you very much.
None for me. I appreciate all your work as always. Caught up here with our resolutions. All right, make a motion to approve resolution 21-059, enter into agreement with Olentangy Little League for use of the recreational premises at Roe Park.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Since we're on the topic of field use, I do want to notify the other board members. There's been, I worked with Mr. Cowan through a couple of issues related to these types of agreements, and had some resident contact, where we are as a township, allowing entities to come in and utilize our fields. There's been a bit of I'm trying to as eloquently get into this as possible, but there's been a couple of instances, conflict, if you will, or heightened emotions.
A turf war?
Yeah, no pun intended, right? So it's gotten to become a real problem. And I was forwarded some of the emails that one entity sent, and some from years prior. So this has continued to culminate into an issue. If the board recalls, earlier in the year, I raised some concern over, with Fiscal Officer Kraft, the rate that we're charging entities to utilize the fields. And in working with Mr. Cowan and his staff, and looking at the calendars and such of what is being requested, I think it's a disservice when we talk about it to talk about a field use agreement. In certain instances, it's more of a field ownership agreement. There's certain fields and facilities, when we agree to terms between predominantly two different organizations, we are giving up the utility of the entire facility or park for the duration of the usable season. And so I think it's absolutely critical as we transition to the Parks Master Plan effort underway, that we do what we talked about in that prior meeting. And that is, we all sat and talked through potential costs and considerations that would be used to develop a more reasonable rate or fee to account for depreciation, what we've put into it, what the displacement of our residents, the fact that our fertilization is $150,000 a year, just to keep our grass growing, and water bills, et cetera. We're certainly not recovering the cost right now. And so when you look at the number of folks that are participating, it's definitely not 100% Orange Township utilizing the field. That's fine. But we need to be mindful that it's a fraction of our aggregate population. While the complete township funded these assets, there's no utility once we sign them off to organizations to monopolize. And so I think it's important that we expeditiously get up to speed with our Parks Master Plan entity and understand the true cost of what we're doing in our historic actions with these agreements, because it's important, as we've learned this year and last, from a fiscal standpoint, to ensure that we're staying balanced. And I don't know that we are, with respect to that right now. I certainly will say, looking at this calendar and what the expectation is for North Road Park, we definitely need to put pause on our plans, in my opinion, to continue developing that park until we reach a more aligned understanding of what we're going to do with these agreements, with the entirety of the park being signed off to other entities, for daylight hours through all of the non-snow season, I guess you could say. what are we really investing in there? If the park's monopolized in that fashion, we should still, potentially pursue pickleball and other, dog park.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, that was actually a topic that was touched on in the OTA conference. And the presenter was from the firm that is going to be handling our parks master plan. Things have changed and evolved with, obviously, with field use and youth sports and these types of things. So part of the presentation was that different models in these agreement and different concepts that have become a win-win for the township, as well as the rec or sports leagues. So I think there's some different scenarios and things that we can look at with the parks master plan that would make sure that it makes sense for all parties.
I attended
Yep,
that one
and-
too, Ryan. It was really good. It was a really good presentation.
As I say, Ms. Kraft actually contacted me. We had this conversation, and she notified me of the same, Mr. Rivers, and kind of laughed that the presentation was consistent with the concerns we expressed as far as making sure that you adopt the proper model for specific assets like that. And so I'm excited, and that's why I asked that we do what we can to get that going sooner than later. I think it's critical because we have so much pending investment into that facility that we looked into earlier in the year and last year, that we get the ball rolling there as far as assessing. And based on what I tried to view the video, I wasn't able to, but based on what Ms. Kraft shared with me, it sounds like it would be worthwhile to pause based on the presenter and entity doing our master plan's perspective until they can opine on what we're planning to do and what makes the most sense. And with their expertise, I think it would be worthwhile. So long story short, I think we should pause on investing further until they can come in and look at that and advise the board on what's in our best interest. Is there any objection, Mr. Anto or Mr. Rivers, with that?
No.
No.
Okay. Moves us to the fiscal officer report. Ms. Kraft.
All right. A few things. There is a liquor license hearing request, or notice, I should say, notice of whether we want to have a hearing for LT Pizza Company, LLC, which is doing business as the Pizza Cottage. So we don't need a resolution for this. I just need consensus on if the board would like a hearing or would like to not request a hearing. So we'll go back around to
I'm
that.
fine with moving forward.
You're fine with moving forward. Thanks, Ryan. How about Ms. Taranto or Mr. Grumbles? Do you both consent?
I'll yield to Ms. Taranto since we have some competition on the horizon here.
No need for a hearing.
Thank
No.
you.
I wish them the best of luck.
I'm okay with it too.
I'll get that sent in then. The December 2020 financial reports are final. As a reminder, the delay in posting December is because of our year-end process. When following the Auditor of State guidelines for closing out the year, they recommend posting the bank rack as one of the last items that we do. So I just did that, and we will be closed out officially tomorrow. So from that, I will be putting I had to put a notice in the newspaper. So we'll get that out here before the end of the week, letting everybody know, letting the public know that we have closed our books. And then at that point, I will also post on open checkbook. When we do something that's different this year, when I click the button tomorrow to close out the year, we are going to lose all data from 2011 to 2013 in our UAN, in our accounting system. We have been printing and saving a printed copy as well as an electronic copy of our key reports, our appropriation reports, bank recs, revenue status reports, in case we need to reference back to those. But that's been a bit of an undertaking, just getting all those reports printed out. So we will not have access to that data after tomorrow. Let's see, just a few things, highlights from the December 31st bank rec. Our ending cash position was 24.4 million, well, I'll give you the exact number, $24,418,823.77. We still have about 8.6 million with Fifth Third and about 10 million with Star Ohio for around 19 million in investments. We did close out in January the Star Ohio Plus account that we had. The Treasurer of State is eliminating that as an option. We only had $510.09 in it anyway, so it's a good excuse to clean that account up. Our fund balances, the general was at we ended the general fund at 6 million, roads at 4.7, fire at 6.4 million, and parks at 5.1 million. And for the year, we had 14.3 million in expenses with 17.2 million in tax revenue. And I did send out just a quick little snapshot of year-end expense versus revenue, just so you can see by fund kind of how we were trending. So I'll start to do this year over year so we can see how we trend.
Are you able to make any comments on any trends that you're noticing now?
Not yet. I need to probably go back and dig into it a little bit more. I mean, what I went back and looked at last year, and I think we aren't far off from last year, so that's good. I think what we're going to see is back a couple of years ago, from what I saw, it looked like a big park expense, so that was probably North Park or something like that. So I'll have to go back, and I was going to go back about 4 years so we can start a good trend line to watch it year over year. But good question. The Delaware County Foundation balance as of December 31st is $38,631.04. Difference is the $125 from fees for the quarter. And we did get a deposit in January from T-shirt sales at Olentangy Orange Middle School of $249. So that we'll see that donation on the next quarterly statement. And I think that's all I've got. I do have a resolution, don't I? Eastman and Smith. So we've been going back and forth with Eastman and Smith. We had a conference call last week with them, and I think we've got everything settled out. They ended up issuing us a refund check of like $7,000 and some dollars, even though we owed them this 14. So there seemed to be some problems in just reconciling how they, posting checks. So we think we've got all that cleared up. So this 14.4 cleans up all the 2020 expenses. So it'd be good to get that behind us. And like I said, we did just get a refund check from them for, like I said, it was around $7,700. Then last but not least, the Coronavirus Relief Fund. So I worked, Chris Betts helped me draft this resolution. If you'll remember, we were supposed to have all of our CARES money spent by December 30th. So when we did our appropriations for 2021, we didn't appropriate anything. So this is just trying to catch up and appropriate money for the CARES Fund for 2021 so that we can start to spend the rest of our $680-ish thousand. So. And that's all I've got.
All right, thank you. Move to get the two resolutions passed. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-060, authorize the issuance of then and now purchase order to Eastman and Smith.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-061, approving the Orange Township permanent appropriation measure for the Coronavirus Relief Fund.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles?
Yes.
Ms. Tranto?
Yes.
Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. King, we'll move over to the administrative report.
We actually skipped over an operations pool discussion.
Oh. I guess I didn't see it on here.
6A. I know it's not just me. I'm sure both of you are, and I know the township is getting lots of questions, and I think it's good that we have a plan in place sooner than later.
Where's the? Am I?
Under
Okay.
operations,
I
6A.
don't have a copy of the. I'm working off the template. I don't have the.
Look at the
agenda.
screen. It's on your.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I apologize. Yeah.
Sorry.
So I met with Mr. Cowan last week actually, and talked about the pool as well. And you're correct. I was in the office today and we spoke again about it. I know there are two agreements, or two responses to our solicitation, and we'll have to make a decision on as a board. We talked about the specifics more in line with, depending that the health department and governor and kind of what they provide guidance wise. I think, and Mr. Cowan, correct me if I'm wrong here, the way we proceeded, and I'm glad Mr. Betts is on the phone too. The way we went through this was assuming that the existing approach would be in place, although there is some indication that will be lifted and we'll move towards a more normal, I guess, or less restrictive potentially. I don't know what will come of that, but is that correct, Mr. Cowan, that the existing agreement is more in line with the past?
Yes, the bid documents are in line with the occurrences of last year, the Corona issue. But I have heard the same as you have just mentioned, that some of those restrictions may be lifted, not counting on it as yet. So we're still moving forward as though the restrictions are in play. I have been looking at, Andrew's been on this discussion, and with Marianne, one of our office staff, about getting prices for prepackaged foods, making some concessions that way, maybe looking at vending machines for the pool area instead of opening a concession stand, because the requirements for the COVID were pretty restrictive, and it may just be easier to look at vending machines or prepackaged food sales only. No hot food.
It's something that we do where we're doing reservations for 2 hours at a time. They can even bring their own food or drinks with them, I would think. And then they sanitize in between. That was part of a discussion I think we should have. My other discussion or thought was, and Chris may be able to answer this, or you, Bill, is do we have 30 days or 60 days to accept one of the bids?
I believe it's 60 days are built into the bid documents to make an award.
Okay, I remember.
How far are we now?
So, well, I'm going to have, I forget the opening date. It was maybe mid-January. I'm going to intend on having the bid documents ready for your consideration at next meeting. I know, we're talking about making changes and doing things different. Some of those things may, in my opinion, may take some amendments to the agreement if they're awarded to make those changes. For instance, in the agreements, we're requiring the contractor to open up the concession stand. He has to hire so many people to do that. Yeah, I think if we want to do things differently, we may have to, revisit some of that either before before opening or before awarding the bid or immediately thereafter anyway.
And that's something we talked about when I was with you as well,
Yeah.
Mr. Cowan, because I had some concerns. But I will say, from a concession standpoint or a food standpoint, there's a longer term issue that relates to our concession operation there. and talking with Fiscal Officer Kraft even about this, that we need to kind of look into. And in the interim, assuming there's restrictions, and we end up doing time slots, which my understanding is Rec Desk is capable of assisting us with. We can discuss that. We could also look at potential food trucks and things of that nature if we wanted to, that could serve at the pool area. There's tons of options, but I don't think that right now concessions is the number one priority for consideration. I think the number one priority for us as a township will be what the stipulations are, or the restrictions we have to operate under, and ensuring that we have integrity of our ingress at the front there, because I know in the past that's been a major area of opportunity for us. And again, speaking with Fiscal Officer Kraft, I think she shares that concern. That's where I'm at. Trustee Rivers.
Yeah, if I may, I was able to spend some time last week with our health commissioner, Sheila Hillson, and the belief is nothing is 100% certain, but the belief is a lot of the stuff related to pools is going to be lifted. I spoke also to some of the folks over at the city of Delaware. They're moving forward with opening, pretty much under the norms of the past, and we should get some definite answers here soon, but I don't think we're gonna be looking at anything close, to the restrictions that were placed on us last year.
Well, that's good news. We are working with an architect on the entrance issues that we've had in the past. That's it's a wide area. It's not really built to handle a lot of people at one time, but so we're looking to put in some queuing stations, allowing for separation while you're waiting in line if you have to wait. So we are looking at those problems. Just real quick for reference point, I know both the firms that submitted bids this year, I've talked to both representatives, and they both successfully ran public swimming pools last year, even during the pandemic. So I think either one of them would be a good resource to tap into if we still have to go down that road, and look for some good suggestions on how to move forward doing that.
Debbie, I'm really glad you brought this up. Can I just ask that when you guys talk further about how you're going to operate, because I'm happy I can put together some cost modeling if you guys would like. Would need some assumptions on what you'd expect as far as occupancy, and also, are you thinking it's residents only, memberships only? To your earlier question, 2-hour blocks, or are you going to do same day door sales? So those are just some of the things that I'd also, throw in there as a frequent user of the swimming pool. I'm thrilled with what Ryan just said, but just some other things to consider. And like I said, then I can throw together some numbers. We normally lose money on the pool, so this will at least give us an idea of how much, what might that look like for next year or for this upcoming pool season.
It looks like we're all in agreement that we look forward to opening the pool this year. So we just need to figure out how that's going to look.
Yeah, I mean, you never know, anything can change, but as of now, it looks like we'll be able to open pretty close to business as usual.
Can I interject for just a second?
Yes.
This is Chris. I just wanted to say, in terms of, I know Bill made some references to the documents that were put out there in the bid package and the contract. This is an ever-changing target. As we knew last year, we kind of made some additions and corrections and things in the bid package and in the contract documents. And I think they're all still in there. We used a lot of the same bid package. Bill told me that at least the bidders that he spoke to were pleased with what they saw in there. But it allows us some flexibility as things change and different restrictions come and go, to work with those and work with the vendors on those. So, the flexibility was built into the document, just recognizing that it's a changing target and things might change.
Thank you for that, Chris.
So in my view, we need to choose one of the companies sooner than later, hopefully the next meeting, so that they have time to adjust, make changes, handle things the way the health department advises, et cetera. I'm not one to put things off to the last minute.
So I got just real quick, one more thing. So whomever we award, or whomever the board chooses to award the contract to, it is set up so that the same premise as the history of the pool has been in the past, to sell season passes. And season passes are available to residents of Orange Township. They can also buy a daily pass, as well as non-residents can buy a daily pass. I guess that's going to have to be part of the discussion if you want to move forward with the standard season pass, or if you want to change that whole operation up somehow to make it work a little differently. And again, I think that may just depend upon the requirements of CDC requirements and guidelines.
I think the pool company that gets chosen can also help us with some of those ideas and decisions.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely.
All right. We had a pretty lengthy discussion, but right now I think the challenge is the ambiguity around what our conditions are going to be. And I'm glad Mr. Betts spoke up, because my big question for Mr. Cowan was, is there inbuilt flexibility or an understanding, an out, if you will, based on conditions that are outside of our control. So it's good to have that. Any other agenda issues that I may have missed before we move on?
I don't see any.
Administrative. Okay, Mr. King.
Well, thank you, Chair. So, and just so you know, Val, I may go a little out of order for the agenda to sort of hit on the signs all together. So just to give everyone here and watching a sort of an overview, and I think, one of the trustees may have additional information here that's been here longer than me. So where I sort of stepped into this situation was the branding had been done, the wayfinding had been done, and there was a desire to move forward with the signs. Talking with DCFA, Bob Lamb, they're planning on doing some signage for the DC 23 project that the commissioners are working on, and some of those other type things. So the board decided to move forward with all that signage that had been recommended in the wayfinding study, based again on the branding stuff. So when talking with Bob Lamb, DCFA was not ready itself to move forward last year, but recommended to help coordinate things. We continue to work with the same vendor, which is Custom Quality Signs, or maybe it's Quality Custom Signs, whichever it is. So we worked with them. I think, as this board knows, they put up the wayfinding signs, they put up the sign toppers throughout the county, or throughout the township, I'm sorry. And there was another, I think the wayfinding, I may be misremembering this, the wayfinding study called for 1 or 2 signs that would be an ODOT right away. I reached out and spoke to them about that. We're still sort of talking about what signs we can and cannot put in that. That's also something DCFA, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but DCFA, I'm hopeful, I talked to Bob Lamb about, can sort of help us get that over the hurdle. But as the board saw, we went ahead and got those wayfinding and other signs up. I think it all went pretty well. There was an error on the one sign where the arrows were pointed the wrong direction. So that was caught pretty quickly by the community. And then I think there was a temporary like patch put over it. Since then, and Trustee Rivers can remind me if I'm speaking out of turn here, the vendor came out. There was a day before all this snow that I think they were finally able to get out and replace it. I know they were trying real hard to get out because it's got to be certain temperatures and all that kind of stuff to get that replaced. So I believe that was done. If not, all they're waiting for is the good day. I know they were sort of telling me we're shooting for certain days. So, when I talked to Trustee Grumbles, or I guess Chair Grumbles, earlier today, and I wanted to bring up at this meeting, was the sign toppers, which are the Orange Township logos, were taken down by the county engineer. I have had conversations with the county engineer. I've had conversations with the county administrator. I understand what the engineer's position on that is. I'm still working through it. I believe at the end of the day, we're going to get that ironed out with the county and get those sign toppers back up, so that I'll let the board know when that happens. And then in talking with Bob Lamb at DCFA, I believe, again, sort of when the weather changes, they're planning on getting their DC 23 signs out, and we're going to plan to coordinate with them on some of that. And I think they've talked to us about some financial consideration that I think Trustee Rivers knows more about, but that sort of takes us today. So I don't know if you want to add anything here, Trustee Rivers.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand kind of the overview and a little bit of the history. In 2018, our comprehensive plan was approved. Part of that plan was community image. If you go back and look at the comp plan, it was recognized in the resident feedback, lack of signage, the question, what kind of branding initiative would you like to see? That was the number one, was actually sign consistency. And as I said, a lack of signage. So from there, we started our branding project. And part of that project was a wayfinding study that we did eventually approve. In addition to this, and the timing worked out very well, the county put together a branding project for Route 23, which I served on as part of the steering committee, came up with DC 23 or the Delaware connection. So part of our wayfinding study covered 23. Now with what they're doing on 23, the county is going to assist and put out some different things. They paid for all the 23 branding project, and we don't have, the details haven't been ironed out exactly, but they are going to be investing in this signage on 23. So that all's worked out very well. This is it's a long process. So I'm confident with these sign toppers that will that will get resolved. I'm sure Michelle can speak to signage in Orange over the years has been a bit of an adventure. So the fact that there was a bit of a bump in the road along the way, I don't think is a complete surprise. The initial cost up front with the signs, it's the equipment, it's getting these installed. There's banners, and some of these areas, it's dependent upon the weather. So like for what's gone up in this first phase with the banners, you don't know till you put them up. Some might last in an area for 90 days, some might last for a year. But once they're up and you've invested in the equipment, changing out the banners is very, very inexpensive. Other communities, will put up banners for the holidays or different things. So there's a lot of creative things we can do, as with the wayfinding signs. Those can be changed out as well. There is an investment up front, and it is a lot to tackle up front. But this is something that was part of the comp plan and was recognized as a need, a lack of signage. And I believe there was some discussion as far as the fire station and adding some signage, as we don't have any signage, I believe, at the fire station. So that's just kind of a big picture of where it started and where we're at today.
When did it come up that the county said that we couldn't have signs on county roads?
Well, it didn't come up so much as they just basically took them down without much discussion. So, I mean,
When did that happen?
I would have to go back and look. I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Months ago?
No, I don't believe it was months ago, but I would have to
It's
go
probably
back.
one
and
of
look.
those things where I feel like I'm out of the loop. If I'd like to be kept in the loop when things like that happen. I have a pretty good relationship with the county and I could have opened up some discussions. My other
Well-
question is that Guide is who we used for this, correct? To me, with their experience, especially, they've done a lot of townships and cities, wouldn't they be aware of what's allowed and not allowed when you're putting on different roads?
Well, I can talk to both of those. I don't know if Ryan wants to chime in at all, but so I want to say, and I've said this to Rob, so this is nothing that he doesn't know. It's been a very difficult relationship with the engineer's office on a number of projects over the course of this year. It was communicated to me from the sign company that they have never had this kind of problem before. I mean, I think it was, a little bit unfriendly, uncooperative. It sort of isn't in the spirit of what we're trying to do with DCFA and the commissioners. So that's why, I'm hopeful and, that we'll get this resolved without escalating it any further than it's been with the county engineer's office on this. So it was a surprise. I mean, again, the vendor felt personally that, they're a local company. They've done this all over central Ohio and whatnot. They've done the exact same kind of projects. So they were surprised by the tact that was taken here, the position that was taken. I was too. I was frankly really disappointed. And again, I'm just sharing publicly with what I said privately, that, it wasn't really presented as a discussion. It wasn't presented as a opportunity to cooperatively or collectively solve a problem. It was issued as more or less an ultimatum. And, but like I said, I'm as Trustee Rivers said, I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to be able to get that resolved and overcome that. So it's just what I'm hopeful is just a hitch in the road, and we'll move forward on that. So, and to sort of to share this more broadly, some of the other issues that we have had with the engineer's office involve the overlay. And again, I think we've resolved it we've gotten to at least an accommodation on supporting the overlay and some of the technical review on that kind of stuff. We had a recent issue that Aaron James brought up to me last week about the salt. Apparently the engineer's office did not, and I'm still chasing this information down, but apparently they didn't put forward our salt order. So, we're trying to figure out what the consequences of that to Orange Township is. I think, talking to Aaron, we're good for this snow season, but, we may have to do some supplementary ordering for next fall. So, we've had some bumps in the road with the engineer's office this year, and I'm hopeful that, last year and then going into this year, and I'm hopeful that's something we can straighten out going forward.
And Administrator King, if I may add, the situation with the salt that affects has an impact on multiple townships. So that's something that the Township Association right now is addressing.
Thank you.
Did you know
So,
about the salt?
again, I'm,
Wait a minute. Did you also know about the salt, Ryan?
I'm sorry?
Did you know about the salt?
That
We
just came up in the last day. I had another township contact me, and like I said, the Township Association is looking to address that. So it's a multi-township deal.
And I spoke with Mr. King today about this, the collective issues, because a resident brought the sign removal to my attention via a records request. It wasn't something I was aware took place. And anytime something manifests like that, I think the board should be involved. I agree, Trustee Taranto. We need to be engaged so that we can try and diplomatically get this resolved. the salt issue as well. And I do, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe there was a salt issue previously to some degree, or some other issue related to that last year, that I remember surfacing. It
don't
didn't
think
end up
we-
bothering.
I don't think we needed salt last year. There was a salt shortage now, like, I don't know, within the last 5 years, like a significant salt shortage. Chris, you may
I
even.
thought last year there was some sort of potential allocation issue, but because we didn't need salt, it never manifested into an issue like we have now.
Right.
But my understanding is that from a process standpoint, in talking with Mr. King, this kind of goes back to Operations 101, where, our staff called and notified someone via voice, via phone, that, hey, we need salt, or whatever. There's got to be a more robust process than a phone call for something this significant. And if we have to drive that as the largest township in partnership with the engineering office, or whomever we're working with, whether it's the county or we go independent with OTA, and that's another thing that came up today. There's potential price options out there. There's different entities that offer salt, different ways we could scale and leverage clout, whether it's OTA, county, et cetera. But the bottom line is, a phone call is insufficient for something this significant. There needs to be documentation, some sort of process that's more robust than, yeah, I called them and told them. You think about the person on the other end of that phone, and what they may have going on, to remember the phone call and what the number was and that sort of thing. It leaves a lot to be desired, is the point. So, and along with that, it leaves us nothing to go back on. It turns into a finger pointing and chest, bumping match, when it shouldn't be that. It opens us up to creating issues where there were none. So I want to bring that up, and we need to resolve that, go forward. But collectively speaking, the concern for me overall, and I brought this up previously in our meetings, is that with the county, there's spheres of cooperation and collaboration, and there's spheres of not. We've got our prosecutors here tonight. They've partnered with us. We're getting, a good balance working there. We got economic development. We've got commissioners that I know have been responsive when I've reached out in the past too. But we continue to have issues with engineering. And so if there is the ability for us to partner, I've gone down to the office and met with them, and spoke with them, and Mr. Bowserman committed to partnering with us. So I think we need to speak with him directly, because I think a lot of these issues potentially manifesting underneath, with supporting his staff, we might be able to resolve with a phone call or discussion with him directly. And it doesn't make sense for us to work against a collective. Yeah, you think about this, we're working with the township's working with the county to brand and create an economic development center, first of its kind in the county. We're putting up signage that's consistent and segues in as part of wayfinding, and then another entity in the county is ripping it down. It doesn't make sense. It speaks to there being a disconnect. So we need to make sure that going forward, when we are working with different entities or potentially overlapping them as a township, and I think where Trustee Taranto is going, we shouldn't rely on Guide or whomever. Maybe we reach out proactively and say, hey, this has bitten our hand as a township before. We're crossing over these silos, because in some cases they exist and others they don't. We need to make sure we proactively notify them that we're coming into your swim lane. So I want us to be hyper aware of that and vigilant when we do. I wouldn't have thought of this. Either way, I think the response speaks to a larger issue. The way it was handled, you rip the signs off and drop them off at somebody's maintenance facility, and you sure showed us. I just think that we need to work at a staff level and an elected official level to address that. It's not the way we should operate at all. And I was very disappointed when I found out what happened. So Trustee Taranto, I look forward to hearing from you when you make your call. I'm going to reach out as well, and I'm hoping we can put this to bed. It's not beneficial for anyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, and if I may add, as I said earlier, I think these issues will, I'm confident will be resolved. Our overall our relationship with the county now, I think, is better than it's ever been. However, yes, these obviously are concerns and need to be addressed, but I believe we'll get there.
Did you have a particular plan? You said you believe we're going to get there, so I don't want to step on any toes or make phone calls that.
The Township Association, I would expect will have something hopefully resolved by the end of the week with the salt or some sort of an update at that point. I'll let Administrator King speak to the sign toppers. From what I understand, I mean, what it sounds like, I think we can get that resolved. I know as far as the signage and the costs and what we have, those I believe we're kind of throw-ins as far as a sign company and putting those up. So the good news is, as far as expense and having those put back up, that is very easy.
I spoke with a couple of folks at the county today about that, just to try and get a better sense and background before I reach out. But I do plan to reach out to at least one county commissioner to discuss that, and as well as Mr. Bowserman himself, just to make sure we get aligned. I was just, again, I understand the disconnect and those things happen, but the concern for me is the response and my understanding of a conversation that may have taken place after that. They speak to an opportunity and with the engineer's office, and I want to make sure that we take that opportunity at both the staff level on up to improve upon where we're at. But I do agree with Mr. Rivers. Outside of this, I do think we're working well with the county, and I know that commissioners have been responsive when I've reached out and very supportive in the other entities at the county as well. That we're going to have stuff like this happen. We've got to address it when it does, and try and get a positive outcome. So,
Well, and to that end, Chair, I wanted to emphasize or clarify one thing, and then also say, when I've talked to my counterpart, Mike Fromer at the county, I think he's been a great asset in helping us through some of these problems. And I think when he's reached out to the engineer's office and discussed some of these issues, I think it's helped. So again, that's why I'm sharing with the board that there's been some friction, but I want to indicate that I'm still hopeful that we're going to get that resolved positively, because we have on some of these other issues thus far. And I just want to also emphasize, Aaron did leave me with the impression at first we were going to have a crisis with the salt, but I think Bill later checked with him and talked to Doug Riedel and did the things that Bill as the operations director needs to do. And I think, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's confidence that we'll be good through the rest of this snow season, God willing, of course, if I keep getting these Arctic blasts. So, I mean, there's nothing, I don't think there's any need to panic or change plans, but it is something we're going to need to solve before the end of the calendar year. So to that end, and I don't know if the board wants to move on it tonight, but so one of the things that came out of the discussions both Trustee Grumble and I've had with the fire department, and just independent discussions that we've had with sort of the lack of signage for the fire department. I talked to Trustee Taranto a little bit about that today. I think this is something that there's been stops and starts on, and discussions and different plans. I've had discussions with the fire department of different options. So I think there's a desire, talking to Chief Rice, to have input from the fire department on the final design and all that kind of stuff. But what I put it on the agenda to sort of discuss this and all the other issues related to the signage, and then ask the board to authorize the potential purchase of signage up to $11,000. That, of the 3 quotes that I gave you, that would represent the maximum amount of cost. It could be less than that. So I think the way, and Trustee Grumbles and I talked about this briefly at some point, and I fail to remember when. So I think what we would like to do is elicit the feedback from the firefighters as to sort of what they would like the signage to look like. That'll sort of drive the cost, and then, sort of come back to the board of like, this is the sign that we're going to put up at the fire station, and move forward with that. So I threw this resolution 21-064 on the template for discussion purposes. So the board can proceed as it wants, as it would like, but that's the reason this is there.
Yeah, I'm fine with moving forward.
Yeah, I am too. I think that one of the concerns when I met with the fire department with you, Mr. King, and then in conversation with Chief Rice is they've never had a sign at one of the stations, and just the I guess the feeling that transitioned into the firehouse as a result of that. So I think it's critical we get signage for multiple reasons, not only our internal culture, but consistent with our wayfinding and efforts in general. We also have a sign that's been down for a while over on the Orange Road location. And I want our team to be proud of where they work, and the signs look great. I saw some of the requests that came in for digital and that type thing. I don't think that's ideal right now. I think if we want to go that path in the future, we can visit that. But for now, we need to get some basic signage up, and we can illuminate it with landscape lighting. It looks great when that happens, consistent with other signs we have. I'm fine with it too. Trustee Taranto, I'm not sure if you have any objection.
No.
Can I just ask a question? Just, and I don't remember this from the branding, but I'm looking at the monument. It's got the old logo inside the fire crest or whatever you want to call it. Was that ever changed to have the new logo?
That's the fire. That's still the fire department logo.
Okay, so we didn't update, so the middle didn't change then.
The fire department logo has never changed.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
And just to sort of expound upon that, Fiscal Officer Kraft, is the sign company did not yet have the high res photos for the sign. So again, that would sort of go to working with the fire department to come up with a proof, and moving from there. So it was
Yeah, I think for now,
conceptual proof. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think for now, what we were just hoping to get in talking with Mr. King last week was just board approval, so that we can move to the discussion phase and he can work with Chief Rice and the fire department to solidify of the options we have path forward. That's it. And then we can get the logos and everything else ironed out. All right, Mr. King, keep on trucking and we'll get your resolutions approved after your.
Do you want to just do all the resolutions at the end then, is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's correct.
So the next resolution on here, and I think it's the next thing on the agenda, is the imaging project. So this is something that we committed to last year as part of the CARES spending, and then we'd like to move forward with that. So what this is really a two-pronged project. Is one, it would be, and Ms. Bonnie sent me an email that she's been working with Genoa on this too. So part of this is scanning our records into OnBase, which is a system that the county is familiar with. So what this would allow long-term is the destruction of paper records putting those records on microfiche, which was our permanent copy, and then we'd have an electronic working copy that would allow the fiscal, or I'm sorry, allow particularly the zoning office, but perhaps also the fiscal office, to get some of their space back, get rid of some file cabinets, allow it in a more working, user-friendly format, potentially hyperlink it, be able to put stuff on websites, that kind of stuff. Where right now, just a drawer full of paper, you can't do that. Another part of the project that Fiscal Officer Kraft was particularly interested in is that software has an approval process that would allow the trustees to do the sorts of things I believe she talked about at the last meeting with the ACH, just to, you know, approve invoices, approve the sending of those ACH payments and whatnot. Talking to Jason Montgomery, there's sort of a workflow thing that's involved in all this. So it would kill two birds with one stone. It sort of supports the overall COVID care thing by, you know, minimizing contact, minimizing FaceTime, you know, allowing remote work, allowing receiving and storing electronic applications, which again cuts down on foot traffic, all that kind of stuff, and allow for the operations to go on remotely. So in talking with the IT department, they obviously are serving now all the large townships in the southern part of the county, as well as the county itself. They have a number of significant projects. They also have CARES dollars and whatnot. So what they recommended to me to get this project started was to contract directly with the vendor, which is ImageSoft, to get these projects started. And then they would be able to sort of pick it up, finish it, support it going into the future. So that's why this is on here as for additional contracted services, because this was in talking to the IT department, this is how they would like to see this project started and get moving. If we waited, we would obviously have to pay them for their time in the future, and we would probably have to wait several months based on their availability. So so that's where it's at, and happy to take any questions about this particular project.
I like it.
Well, I appreciate that. I know Fiscal Officer Kraft was once this done, I think January 2nd, I was getting an email like, hey, when's the electronic signature approval software going to be in? So
I do want this project. I see a lot of use for it, even from a records standpoint. We're paying Iron Mountain every month to hold old records. Now we can hold them electronically. Destruction becomes a lot easier once that's approved. Just the workflow of having the audit trail on who approves what and when, that'll be really, really nice from a fiscal standpoint. So we're excited over here.
Zoning likes it too.
The scanning of documents has been a long time coming. I don't understand why something like that has taken so long to happen. And I'm sure Michelle will love it.
Well,
Nice work.
Sorry, Chair, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just saying nice work on this. I think it's a huge benefit. I like the getting rid of a ongoing cost, you know, as well. So
Thank you. Well, so the other two things I have on the agenda, one is a potential action item, which is the sort of the restructuring of the facilities and parks. The other was just to sort of have a discussion about the facility review that we received from Triad. So on the facilities, I mean, there's not really asking for any action at this point. I was just sharing with the board what I received from Triad. So just to sort of talk about the project generally so this was sort of taking a step back. I think before I got here, there was some discussion about turning the garage into offices. So, I think when I came on board, it was like, well, is the township want to spend that money or look at it differently? So took some of that money that was earmarked for that project, took a step back to look at it from a bigger point of view. What's the long-term goal with Orange Township and both the Township Hall Park area and the building itself? So Triad, I think, as everyone on the call knows, but for the benefit of the public, they came in, they looked at our facilities. They ultimately looked at Dick's office over at the fire station, the mechanics area, the barn and facilities over there. They went through Township Hall. They solicited input from everyone about the kind of things they do for their jobs, the number of people they're supervising. And then as you go through the documents, they made some recommendations on how to change the space. I think, as everyone perhaps noticed, is they, on all of the concepts, recommended changing the rear, or what is currently our only entrance area, to how it is currently situated. So, I mean, that sort of paid for itself almost right away with all these plans. So really, I mean, overarching within the Township Hall itself, I believe there's 5 different concepts. Everything, the first concept is sort of the lightest, which is just doing some changes to the fiscal office, which I'm sure she wouldn't mind getting out of the ship hall, and then the reception area, which was done, and then doing some light changes to the Thompson room. The second concept was more significant in that it sort of reallocated space in the Moffett room, made the front, well, what used to be the front of the house, another entrance reception area, putting a reception area there, sort of allowing that part of the building to function as its own thing, so you could close off the office area. It also added an additional office on the, I guess that would be the east side of the building, sort of separated the kitchen and the work area. And then from there, it just sort of got into what the next phase was, adding more office space. So conceivably putting some office space off the Moffett room that could either be the zoning office or fiscal office. I mean, just to be determined. Adding another sort of bigger office where the porch area is in the back. And then I'm trying to remember what and then they talked about, and nothing really was specifically done, was, if the Township Hall were to cease functioning as the township offices, what other things that could be done to sort of support the mission of the parks there. I think they threw some things in about like library programs, community space, potentially a police substation. I don't know if the county would be interested in that. And then the other option that sort of came out as we were having these discussions was talking about the county partnerships, was the opportunity to use some of the space in the DD building, either as the office space or as a portion of our office space. So the plans also discuss some of those options with the county and what would be involved in that. So, I think what I sort of shared with the board already, I think sort of the thought would be, right now, the maintenance workers over in the garage don't really have any dedicated office space. They have just one lunch area they share. Dick Ray, now Mike Kelly, doesn't really have a dedicated space to do woodworking, painting, those sorts of things. So, moving some people around would both facilitate sort of the COVID spreading out and then allow for some other uses. So, the point of this was to, have Triad look at all of our facility options, including the space that the county said would be available to us, and sort of put before the board these options for, discussion and future action. So, as I said, I'm not anticipating any action to be taken tonight. I don't think, I think this is probably something, as we're going through the Parks Master Plan and whatnot, we decide, but I certainly wanted to share it with the board, and I think there's some exciting ideas in there, some exciting designs and some opportunities, and just thought it was an opportunity to get some feedback tonight and see if there are any questions.
I'll just add, I think that the timing of all of this with the Parks Master Plan, I agree. It's a lot of different options there and things on the table. So it's going to work out very well as far as assessments and getting input and trying to figure out what's the best path forward.
Well, before I move on to the next thing, I think the only thing I just wanted to also just sort of mention publicly, I think the board's already aware of this. Again, sort of looking at those partnerships, talking to DCFA with their partnerships, they thought if we ultimately did want to look at some space over in the DD building, they might be able to help deliver at that at a lower cost, not necessarily financially contribute to it, but just help find a more cost-effective way to do some of that. And so I just, again, there's estimates of probable cause of cost in there, but that was one that the county seemed, and in the spirit of partnership, they could work with us on and perhaps deliver it for lower cost. Well, my last agenda item for the night, and then we get to turn it over to Chris, and I've not heard from the other attorney yet, was sort of discussing the retirement of Dick Ray and moving forward from there. So what I think what I've discussed with the board is with Dick's departure, Mike Kelly was sort of intended to be the successor to Dick. And I think talking with Mike that he would be a worthy successor. I think he's learned a lot. I think he's ready to step up in a management role. I talked with him about his experience in the past. I mean, he has done some management in the past. And, he's been supportive of some of the internal changes we've been making as far as purchasing and moving towards the purchase or work orders and things like that. So, I view Mike as someone who can be a leader within the township. He works well with his team. I think he's able to step forward and lead them. So as part of doing the overview, and I've had a discussion with Mr. Cowan with this, short timer, Bill Cowan, on this, is, sort of what makes sense for restructuring his department. And, Mike has a background in the parks. I think Mike has expressed an interest in working in the parks. So I think it's part of, what we'd be looking for moving forward with promoting Mike and adjusting his title and compensation would be giving him a greater responsibility in the parks. I know Trustee Grumbles had the opportunity, to sit down and talk to him and talk through sort of his vision for the operations department and parks. I have too. I think, again, Mike has that ability to think, to handle the daily transaction load, to think medium term and even long term, and help support someone like Bill as the operations director and figuring out his yearly budget. Issues, he identified issues like the double fertilizing and things that I think Trustee Grumbles brought up today. So again, it makes a lot of sense to me. I think Mike's the right guy for the job, and that's my sales pitch for Mike. I don't know, Bill, if you wanted to chime in here at all and add any of your wisdom to the situation.
Well, I appreciate those kind words for Mike. We've all been thinking the same, even since I first came on board here, that Mike would be a sensible replacement for Mr. Ray when and if that happened. Just my experience working with Mike, he's extremely knowledgeable and thoughtful and caring, and I just think he'd be a great replacement. So.
Yeah, that was always the intention when we had hired him and his experience. So I'm glad to see that it's coming to fruition.
Been impressed with his initiative. I think when you interact with him, his integrity and demeanor, he interacts with the residents at times and keeps track on the Facebook page and made some comments about that. But I like that he stays busy. I always see him working around the township, and he's got good initiative, good work ethic, and from what I've seen, good integrity. Those are good qualities to have. So I enjoyed my conversation with him. We asked the team there to do a little exercise, and one of the challenges of COVID has been not being able to interact with staff as much as a new trustee. And so I have no idea what people do a lot, and had a few instances that weren't as ideal as I hoped take place, and led me to wonder. I've enjoyed getting to know some of the fire department staff, but with parks and maintenance and them driving around everywhere, it's been extremely difficult. And I know in some of their efforts that we asked them to do, just to get a glimpse into the workloads and things as we get into a meaningful time to understand that. If you look at what Mike provided as far as just the structure and breakdown of work, and kind of just a level of engagement and trying to do a good job, the pride of work, I guess, it's solid. So I think he's a wonderful member of the staff and asset to the township.
I think it's always a positive when we can promote from within. So just to echo what we both have, I think Mike's done a good job, committed, and I'm happy for him and see him get this promotion.
Well, I appreciate that, trustees. So at this point, I don't know if you want to take care of the 2 other resolutions, and then either, I don't know if you want to move forward on sort of what I suggested on this, or if you want to adjourn to executive session and add that as an additional item to discuss in executive session, and then come out and make a decision. It's really the board's pleasure on that. But I would at least ask, before we go into executive session, we take care of the other 2 resolutions, and then I'll leave it to the board to decide how they want to move forward on Mike's promotion.
No, I would just ask Trustee Taranto and Rivers if they had questions, if they had a chance to look at your email proposal, and if they had any questions. If they're content with it, we can knock that out right now too.
I don't have any questions.
No.
Okay. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-062 to author the issuance of a purchase order to ImageSoft.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-063, appointment to full-time position of facilities and parks manager.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles, I'm sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
So,
I know where you're going to go, Andrew. It's I can read the full resolution since it's
well,
not there.
I can have Val pull it up because I gave her a copy of it. So if everybody's comfortable with that, she can launch it on the screen here, so everyone is voting on the same thing.
If she wants to pull that up, I can pause and wait. Somebody's going to have to get Robert's rules out and tell me how to back up a bit.
I think you can just use the same resolution number and just call it again, and so that way it's clear that everyone's voting on this item, because it wasn't in the other template.
Okay. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-063, appointment to full-time position of facilities and parks manager.
Second.
Did it? Okay.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-064, authorize the issuance of a purchase order to Quality Custom Signs LLC.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
And I
Well, thank you,
believe,
board. I think that's it for me. There might trustee, goodness, Attorney Betts drafted a resolution that I believe Val has in the template for you. There's one new business item. So I don't know if you want to take care of that before you go the new business until you go into executive session, but I just
Yeah,
wanted to point it out to you.
Before we go to executive, it was under new business. It's actually old business. But for OTOC, we didn't complete in our reorg meeting. As far as our appointments, Tony Benechek would like to return. In OTOC, I found it's 100%, voluntary. There's no compensation. It's an advisory only, committee. So I found it's been most successful when you've got a group that enjoys working together and there's a strong sense of teamwork. So I reached out to the current members and asked for them to provide some recommendations of who they thought would be a great candidate, would be a great addition to the team. So there's two names here, John Hartwell, who used to be on our Parks Board. And I think with what we're doing with the Parks Master Plan and the discussions that we've had with, the fields and usage would be a great asset to the group. And then Kim Boston, who has not been involved before, and I know has a lot of energy and was really, really excited at the opportunity to come on board.
Isn't Mr. Hartwell one of the club points of contact?
He's involved in one of the nonprofits. And like I said, he used to be on our Parks Board. I know our former Parks Director worked with him when he was on the Parks Board, and he was a big help and provided a lot of input. And I think he'd be very helpful in as far as having some of these discussions and as we move things forward and reassessing kind of the model and agreements that we can possibly revise.
But does he currently rent soccer fields or baseball fields?
It's a nonprofit, I believe. I'm not sure of his exact role in that. I don't know if.
I just feel like that would be a conflict of interest.
Well, he served on our Parks Board, and they.
I don't remember his name. I'm thinking it wasn't the last 10 years.
Yeah, he was on the Parks Board. Was that 3 years ago? So he served on that when.
He's a gentleman that's been coming to meetings regarding the soccer fields.
Yeah, he's been involved and definitely has been engaged. But he served on the Parks Board while his nonprofit also worked.
I guess my point is, if he's very vested in leasing the soccer fields for his nonprofit, I think we should be careful with that, having a conflict of interest.
Well, like I said, it wasn't a conflict of interest in the past. He did serve on our Parks Board. If we want to appoint the two tonight and feel the need to revisit it the next meeting, we can.
I think Mr. Benechek is involved in a soccer organization too, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. I know he's with
Tony's in the Scouts.
Preservation Parks or something, right? As well. I've spoken with him about that too, but I thought he was involved in soccer. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, he's been, like I said, we'd be reappointing him to OTOC, and he's been a very valuable member.
I agree with that. I spoke with him.
Does a great job.
And then I actually know Kim Boston, and there's a group in the neighborhood that are very engaged that she's in, several residents, and they all would be fine on the committee if any of the others are interested. So I can speak to their engagement. I was impressed with that during the campaign, they had a neighborhood group that would meet, and they were vetting candidates and discussing issues. They're very engaged. So I was impressed with that too. So I'm fine with all three. I think with JD Hartwell, we just have to be mindful of I don't expect OTOC to dictate the fiscal analysis that we do internally as a board and with Ms. Kraft and Mr. King.
No, and again, it is strictly an
Not going to
advisory
be an issue.
committee.
Yeah, it's not going to be an issue. I just wanted to, I looked at the resume and I saw that there was involvement in soccer, but I thought the name was familiar in conversing with Mr. Cowan, and it is. So yeah, I'm fine with all three. I have no concern. I think we'll just be mindful if there is a conflict and make sure there's nothing that surfaces. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-065, Orange Township outreach. Actually, I don't know if I can do this, but since they're all three different people. Communications committee.
Second,
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-066, Orange Township outreach and communications committee.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Make motion to approve resolution 21-067, Orange Township outreach and communications committee.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Tranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
All right. And there was a couple of things we talked about at the beginning of adding. I'll be brief for sake of time. I appreciate Mr. Bett's patience with us. I've been speaking with different people in the community before my election about community gardening. I think it's something that would serve our community well. If you remember OTOC discussions when I started my term, I really wanted to work on engaging cultural and culturally in diversity and taking on those things. And I'd spoken about, we had dialogue on development and would be interested to have dialogue on diversity because we do have a growing community that's increasingly diverse. I know there's several schools, and talking with the superintendent that are that actually the diversity exceeds the Caucasian or white demographic, if you will, which is unique in the township or in the school district and two of the elementary schools. So in order to get in front of that, there were some initiatives that ensure we could align culturally and learn about each other and foster communication as part of OTOC. One of them was food event, that type of thing. And then of course COVID hit, and we never really had a chance to develop. I think OTOC last year was challenging, and we were all trying to find our new way and that kind of thing. But I didn't give up on the community gardens. I've been speaking for a long time with different opportunities. There's some township land, AEP land that I was hoping to obtain in our own neighborhood, and working with Evans Farm and meeting with them in the past 2 years. Tony Ironman is a very green individual. He's got a passion for growing, and he's got a greenhouse that he runs over there. They grow many trees, etc., and presented this to him and one of the executives of Evans Farm, and they supported this. And so it led to an option this year to offer a community garden to the township. It's a very early stages, but I did get a written commitment. Of course, I'll need to work with Mr. King and Mr. Betts on how we would navigate through that. But I did want to present to the board and the community that the goal for me is to offer that this year. I've already spoken to a couple potential vendors that would work with us as well. The specific site we're looking at would be at least a 2-year, maybe 3-year type of opportunity. And we'll also be looking to bring this up with other developers and other vacancies in the community, as opposed to just having land that sits there in flux can we add value in the community and offer, a means to the community to do something fun. So more to come on that, and I'll be looking to surface with our new OTOC board and get their feedback and make this a win for the township.
And I'm absolutely in support of that. I just think it should be a part of the Parks Master Plan. It should all fall under that.
I think it can be longer term as far as the township stake goes, Trustee Taranto, something that we could offer on a more permanent basis with the master plan. In other words, looking at our internal assets, the land that we have. I know there's some undeveloped land over by Kroger, for example. There's parks that we have in place. And that's why I didn't go directly for township property, because we are in the process of working with our parks master plan. The thought here is you listen to the residents and the chatter on social media. There's always concern over what's being built. There's concern over, what's going on, and curiosity mixed in too. And with the developers, a lot of times they'll come in and do site development work, and they'll flatten an area and take the trees out. You look at the roundabout over by Lewis Center Road, for example, when they cut all those trees down. We've had a field there for a year with little, value add while they wait to put in sewer, water, whatever. This site development work happens in stages, and sometimes, as we've known in our township, several years. The thought for me is that we're able to leverage what would otherwise be an eyesore to the community and add value and bring people together and turn it into a positive. And so it was intentionally not targeting township property, but I do agree with you. And I think with our Parks Master Plan, we could put something together and leverage our fixed assets, if you will. This is going to be something I will look to rotate and expand upon on a temporary basis, though, to the point made. If that makes sense.
Chair, I know and Chris or Paul could jump in on this, but I think I sent you some language you could use for the motion for executive session. So Paul Lafayette, he's here with representing us, but through our insurer on the one matter, and then Chris is representing us on the other matter. So I would assume we'd want both to go to executive session with the board. So do you have that, Chair, or do you need me to?
No, I have it here, and I think the resolution would be 068, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Make a motion to, I guess I don't need a resolution number, right? Make a motion to enter into executive session to conference with attorneys and discuss pending legal actions as permitted by RC 121-22 section G subsection 3.
Second.
Mr. Rumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Hey,
King,
Andrew,
do
can you
you-
send me that resolution?
Yes.
Certainly.
And Mr. King, how would you prefer we?
I think Michelle, are you able to create the little breakout room?
I think Val's handling.
Well, I know I asked both of them and it sounded like they both thought they could do it. So I'm guessing that's what they're doing right at the moment.
I hear them. I think they're on mute.
Probably want to exit YouTube for now, and then we'll come back together.
You should be getting an invite to join. And then I'll remind them to turn off the streaming. I think there's something Michelle has to put up, so.
All right. Miss Bonnie or Val, if whenever you're, I don't know if you're still live on you. Oh, yep, you're still live up there, I think. Are you recording?
Hey, Ben, I sent you the resolution to return from executive
I
session.
saw that. I appreciate that. I just didn't know if we were, okay, we're recording. Make a motion to approve resolution 21-069 to return to regular session.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Right. Welcome back, everyone. We have a few resolutions here to move forward with following our executive session. We have a matter in the template that involves a rail crossing in the township that's been talking point in the past. Franklin Street crossing, as many know, the Rail Commission had communicated with the township a few years ago about closing it. They made an offer to the township in order to proceed with closing, and we were still trying to negotiate when they moved forward, retracted the offer and moved forward to go ahead and in fact close that crossing. And so we are going to allow our county prosecutor's office, who's representing us in the discussion with the objection that the township filed in the matter before the township of closing Franklin Street. We're going to proceed in discussion with them with Mr. King, our township administrator, as a primary point of contact. And so resolution that I'm going to propose allows Mr. King to work with our prosecutor's office and negotiate on behalf of the Board of Trustees to ensure the township's best interest as the Rail Commission moves forward with their plan to close the petition to close the intersection there. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 21-070, authorizing the township administrator to negotiate and approve settlement of action before PUCO.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
I believe that completes our workload tonight, unless there are any other matters that I'm unaware of.
I just had one last comment. I think the consent agenda has been a great improvement as far as our meetings and efficiency. The way we bring our resolutions forward, it doesn't follow Robert's rules, and it's very unique. So I'll have Administrator King, just a suggestion, but I'll have him kind of give an example to each of you. I'd like for you just to consider it as far as how we bring our resolutions forward in our meetings. Something to consider. You'd like to make the change, I think it's something we look at.
I appreciate that, and I know I've spoken with about this in the past, so I'm excited to take a look at options. And I believe this was part of the original plan anyway. This was step one, and we were going to migrate into adopting the Robert's Rules of Order and a few different changes. So excited to look at the future. Hearing nothing else, thank you again, Mr. Betts, for all your time tonight. I know it was a long meeting. We covered a lot, but we certainly appreciate your partnership.
No problem. Thanks for having me on board.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-071 to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Mr. Grumbles,
Yes.
Ms. Taranto,
Yes.
Mr. Rivers.
Yes.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
All right.